I was working 3 jobs, barely making rent in my rundown apartment when he walked in. A chance encounter at the hotel where I cleaned rooms changed everything. I never believed in fairy tales until I became the leading character in one. I never thought my life would make for much of a story. 3 years ago, I was just another face in the crowd, exhausted eyes, worn-out shoes, and a smile that took more energy than I had most days. My alarm would blare at 4:30 a.m., and I'd drag myself out of bed in the dark, careful not to wake my little sister sleeping on the pull-out couch in our one-bedroom apartment. She deserved better than this life I could barely provide for her since Mum passed. By 5:15, I'd be at the diner, serving coffee to night shift workers and early risers, memorizing orders and forcing cheerfulness for tips we desperately needed. My feet would already be aching by the time I'd rush to the hotel at 11, where I'd clean rooms until 4, scrubbing toilets, changing sheets, and occasionally finding loose change that felt like winning the lottery. Some nights, I'd head straight to data entry at the insurance office until 9, typing until my fingers cramped, while dreaming of the business degree I'd had to abandon when Mum got sick. The math never worked. Rent, groceries, my sister's school supplies, the medications I sometimes skipped to make ends meet. Each month was a careful dance of which bill to pay late, which creditor to avoid, which dream to put on hold just a little longer. My refrigerator was covered with overdue notices instead of vacation photos. My social life consisted of brief conversations with coworkers between shifts. And romance. That was a luxury for women with time and energy I couldn't spare. I had plans once, big ones, a corner office, financial security, maybe even my own business someday. But life has a way of laughing at your plans. Instead, I became an expert at stretching $20 for a week's groceries and hiding my exhaustion from my sister, who was the only reason I kept pushing through each day. I'd lie awake at night wondering if this was all there would ever be. This constant climb up a mountain that only seemed to grow taller. What I didn't know then was that life can change in an instant. One random Tuesday, one unexpected encounter, one moment when the universe decides to rewrite your story without warning. Stay with me as I share how my life transformed from constant struggle to unimaginable happiness, and discover how true connection can happen when you least expect it. Because my story isn't just about finding love with a man who had everything, it's about finding the worth in myself when I thought I had nothing. And if it happened to me, who knows? Your life-changing moment might be waiting just around the corner too. Growing up, I was that kid with big dreams and a journal full of plans. My mum used to call me her little CEO because I was always organizing the neighborhood kids into some business venture. Lemonade stands with tiered pricing, car washes with premium packages. I believed with my whole heart that I'd break our family's cycle of just getting by. I'd be the first to finish college, first to own instead of rent, first to build something that would last. Then reality hit like a freight train. Mum's diagnosis came during my sophomore year of college, stage 4, terminal. I didn't even hesitate. I dropped out, moved home, and became her caretaker while picking up whatever jobs I could find. My sister was only 14 then, still needing someone to show up for her school events, to make sure she didn't lose her childhood to our new reality. The medical bills piled up faster than the sympathy casseroles from neighbors. After Mom died, I was left with her debt, a grieving teenager to raise, and the weight of unfulfilled promises. Dating wasn't even on my radar. The last relationship I'd had ended when he said I was too busy and never fun anymore. As if watching my mother die and working myself to exhaustion was some lifestyle choice I'd made. After him, there were a few dates here and there, mostly well-meaning setups that ended with awkward goodbyes and mutual relief. One guy ghosted me when I couldn't afford the restaurant he chose. Another kept suggesting I just get a better job, like it was that simple. Eventually, I built walls so high that even I couldn't remember what it felt like to let someone in. My daily routine became a blur of clock watching and coffee. I kept a change of clothes in my car for quick switches between jobs. I learned to shower in under 3 minutes. My meals were whatever was quick or on discount, sometimes just coffee and a protein bar to keep moving. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford, averaging 4 hours on good nights. My sister would leave me notes of encouragement that broke my heart. "You're my hero," they'd say, when I felt like anything but. The worst part wasn't even the exhaustion or the endless bills. It was watching opportunities pass me by, one after another, like trains I couldn't catch. A promotion at the office that required full-time hours I couldn't commit to. A chance to finish my degree with night classes I couldn't afford. Friends moving forward with their lives while I remained stuck in survival mode. I'd scroll through social media late at night, seeing former classmates in graduation gowns or traveling abroad, and wonder if I'd ever have the chance to chase anything beyond next month's rent. What kept me going were the small moments of grace, my sister's laughter when we'd have our weekly movie night with dollar store snacks, the elderly man at the diner, who always tipped generously because my granddaughter's about your age, the hotel guest who left a thank you note for the extra towels. I held on to these tiny kindnesses like lifelines in a storm that never seemed to end. It was a Tuesday in April. Nothing special about that day, except that I was running behind schedule. The hotel had been slammed with a corporate event, and I had twice as many rooms to clean as usual. My supervisor wasn't happy, guests were impatient for check-in, and my back was screaming from changing linens on king-sized beds. I was heading to room 718 when I realized I'd left my cleaning cart blocking the elevator. Rookie mistake. As I rushed back, I collided with someone coming around the corner. The stack of fresh towels I was carrying scattered across the hallway carpet. I dropped to my knees, frantically gathering them while apologizing profusely, not even looking up at who I'd hit. "I'm so sorry, sir. These will be replaced immediately. I'm so sorry for the inconvenience." My words tumbled out automatically, the script of someone who couldn't afford to lose this job. "It was entirely my fault," a deep voice replied, and then he was kneeling beside me, helping collect the towels. That's when I finally looked at him, tall, dressed in a simple blue button-down and jeans that somehow still looked expensive. No wedding ring, kind eyes that crinkled slightly at the corners. He didn't look like the typical businessman who stayed here, with their impatience and dismissive glances. "You don't have to do that," I said, embarrassed that a guest was picking up after me. "Please, let me—" "I insist," he said, handing me the last towel with a smile that made me pause. Not flirtatious, not condescending, just genuine. I was distracted, looking at my phone instead of where I was going. Completely my fault. We stood, and I noticed he didn't immediately walk away like most guests would. Instead, he asked my name. Not in that entitled way some men have, but with actual interest. When I hesitantly told him, he repeated it as if testing how it felt to say it. "I'm Michael," he said, not offering a last name. I should have gone straight back to work. I was already behind. But something about him made me linger. Maybe it was that he looked at me like I was actually visible, not just part of the hotel furniture. We chatted briefly about the weather, about the city, normal things, nothing that explained why my heart was suddenly beating a little faster. Before he left, he asked if I worked there often. I told him I was there 5 days a week. He nodded and said, "Maybe I'll see you tomorrow then." I dismissed it as politeness. Men like him, even ones in casual clothes, didn't notice women like me, women with dark circles under their eyes and calloused hands. But the next day, there he was. He'd ordered room service and specifically requested that I be allowed to deliver it if I wasn't too busy. My supervisor, eyebrows raised suggestively, told me to make the guest happy. I went up to his room expecting the worst. I'd dealt with my share of entitled men thinking hotel staff were available for more than turning down beds. Instead, I found him working at the desk, papers spread everywhere. He thanked me, tipped generously, and simply asked if I'd join him for coffee when my shift ended. I said no. Something that good-looking, that seemingly kind, had to have an angle. I'd learned that lesson too many times before. For 3 days, he found small reasons to cross paths with me. Never intrusive, never demanding. Just brief conversations where he'd ask one question about me, my favorite book, what I thought about the city's new park, if I'd ever traveled abroad. On the 4th day, he left a note with my supervisor, not asking me out again, just thanking me for brightening his business trip with our conversations. It included a gift card to a local bookstore after I'd mentioned loving to read but rarely having the time. The gesture was so simple but so thoughtful that when he approached me in the lobby on his last day and asked once more if I'd have coffee with him, I surprised myself by saying yes. I told myself it was just coffee, just 1 hour of pretending my life could include something like this. What harm could come from 1 hour? Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into weekend walks. For weeks, I had no idea who Michael really was. He drove a nice but modest car, wore simple clothes, and never flashed money around. We'd meet at normal restaurants, talk for hours, and he'd listen to my stories like they were the most fascinating things he'd ever heard. He never pushed for more than I was ready to give, respecting the walls I'd built without taking offense. Then came the charity gala. He asked if I'd accompany him, mentioned it was for work, and suggested I might need a dress. When the car he sent wasn't the usual sedan but a sleek black limousine, my stomach dropped. The driver called him Mr. Reynolds, a name I suddenly recognized from magazine covers and business news. Michael Reynolds, tech innovator, philanthropist, billionaire. Walking into that ballroom on his arm was like stepping into another dimension. Crystal chandeliers, people draped in jewelry worth more than my yearly income, and everyone knew him. Women with perfect blowouts and designer gowns gave me thinly veiled looks of appraisal. Men in custom suits clapped Michael's shoulder while eyeing me with curiosity or dismissal. I felt like an imposter in my borrowed dress, waiting for someone to call security. "Why didn't you tell me?" I whispered when we had a moment alone. "Because for once, someone saw me before they saw my bank account," he said. "You liked me for the conversations, not the connections. Do you know how rare that is?" That night changed everything. Suddenly, I was straddling 2 worlds, still working my jobs, still paying bills late, still helping my sister with homework, while occasionally stepping into a reality where private jets and penthouse views were normal. I didn't belong in either place anymore. The girl from the hotel was dating a billionaire, and I had no rulebook for that. The night I truly fell for Michael wasn't at some glamorous event or expensive restaurant. It was when my sister got sick with the flu, and I had to cancel our plans last minute. Instead of being disappointed, he showed up at our apartment 2 hours later with homemade soup, medicine, and a stack of board games. He sat on our worn couch in our tiny living room with the leaky ceiling corner and played Monopoly with us until my sister fell asleep. "You didn't have to do this," I said as we cleaned up game pieces. "I wanted to see where you live, who you love," he said simply. "This is your world. It matters to me because you matter." That night revealed what made us work against all odds. Beyond his wealth and my struggles, we shared the same values. Family first, honesty always, kindness as a default. He valued my perspective on his business ideas, saying my experience struggling financially gave me insights his wealthy advisors lacked. I challenged him to see beyond corporate bubbles. He encouraged me to dream beyond survival mode. We talked about everything. His lonely childhood in boarding schools, my fear of abandonment after my father left, his failed relationships with women who loved his money, my trust issues from men who couldn't handle my responsibilities. There was a raw authenticity between us that neither had experienced before. "Most people in my life want something from me," he confessed one night as we walked along the river. You're the first person who seems uncomfortable when I offer help. And you're the first person who sees that I'm more than my circumstances, I replied. The real foundation of our connection wasn't romantic gestures or physical attraction, though both existed. It was found in those unguarded moments of vulnerability, when he admitted feeling like an imposter in business meetings despite his success, when I shared my shame about not finishing college, when we both acknowledged our fears that we weren't enough. In exposing our broken pieces, we somehow made each other whole. Not everyone was thrilled about our relationship. Michael's business partners raised eyebrows, questioning my intentions within earshot. His ex, a socialite from a banking dynasty, cornered me at an event to warn me people like me never lasted in his world. Tabloids published unflattering photos with headlines like Reynolds' cleaning lady romance, rags to riches, or gold digger. My sister faced whispers at school about whether I was sleeping my way to the top. Meanwhile, my own skepticism resurfaced like clockwork. Each time he introduced me to important people, I'd retreat into self-doubt. When he suggested I quit one of my jobs, my pride flared defensively. I'd spent years building independence. Accepting help felt like failure. We had our first major fight when he paid off my mother's medical bills without asking me first. I was trying to help, he said, frustrated. I never asked to be saved, I fired back. I need you to respect that I have to do some things myself. The worst came when his mother visited, a poised, cold woman who took one look at our relationship and declared it a phase. She pulled me aside at dinner, offering a check to make this easier on everyone. My hands shook as I tore it up, but my voice was steady when I told her, I love your son, not his bank account. Michael stood with me through it all. He confronted his mother, distanced himself from judgmental friends, and defended me publicly. I learned to accept help without sacrificing dignity, to believe I deserved to be in these spaces. Together, we established boundaries that honored both our worlds. They think I'm not enough for you, I admitted one night. They're right, he said, taking my hands. You're far more than I deserve. My world is superficial, driven by status. You taught me what really matters. If anyone's not enough in this relationship, it's me. That's when I realized the biggest obstacle hadn't been external judgment, but our own fears of inadequacy. By acknowledging them, we finally found equal footing. The woman I am today barely recognizes the exhausted, cynical person I was 3 years ago. It's not about the material changes. Though those exist, I no longer check my bank account with dread. My sister has a college fund, and I sleep more than 4 hours a night. The real transformation happened within. With Michael's encouragement, I returned to school and finished my business degree. But I didn't stop there. I started a foundation providing scholarships and mentorship to single parents and caregivers who had to pause their education. The struggles I lived through became my expertise, my perspective a valuable asset rather than something to overcome. You could buy anything, go anywhere. Why stay connected to that part of your life? Someone once asked me at a charity event. The answer was simple. Because that part of my life made me who I am. My worth isn't in what I have now, but in what I've overcome. I've learned to move confidently in spaces that once intimidated me without sacrificing authenticity. I still clip coupons and buy sale items, still make my mother's recipes from scratch, still value the small moments of connection over grand gestures. Some habits of survival became choices of principle. Michael transformed too. The man who once worked 18-hour days now prioritizes balance. He volunteers at my sister's school, teaching coding to kids who never imagined tech careers were possible for them. His business decisions now consider impact beyond profit margins, something his board members initially resisted but now embrace as visionary. The most profound change, though, has been learning to accept love without feeling undeserving of it. I no longer wait for the other shoe to drop, no longer sabotage happiness because it feels temporary. I've come to understand that real transformation isn't about becoming someone new, but about finally embracing who you were always meant to be. Someone worthy of love, capable of greatness, deserving of joy. Our life together isn't perfect. No relationship is. We still argue about silly things like his tendency to leave wet towels on the bed, or my habit of working through meals. The difference is that now, we face everything as equals, as partners who've proven our commitment through storms and celebrations alike. We chose to live modestly by his standards, a beautiful home certainly, but not the mansion his friends expected. We split our time between the city and a small lakeside cottage where nobody knows his net worth or my background. There, we're just Michael and Tasha, the couple who brings homemade pies to community potlucks and joins the local cleanup committee. My sister is thriving in college now, studying engineering and mentoring girls from similar backgrounds. She calls Michael her brother without hesitation, the highest compliment she could give. The foundation we started has helped hundreds of caregivers return to school, creating ripples of change in communities like the one I came from. Some days, I still wake up startled by this life, wondering if it will disappear. On those mornings, Michael reminds me that our love isn't about fairy tales or rescue fantasies. It's about two incomplete people who found themselves more whole together. What we built wasn't given to me. We created it together. The greatest lesson in all of this hasn't been about love conquering socio-economic divides, or even about second chances. It's been about recognizing your own value before anyone else does. About understanding that circumstances can limit your options, but never define your worth. About knowing that the strongest foundations are built not on grand gestures, but on daily choices to see and honor each other. I am still a Black woman who came from nothing. That will always be part of my story. But it's just the beginning, not the whole narrative. What matters more is what I've built, who I've become, and the love I never thought possible, but now wake up to every day. Looking back at the woman I was 3 years ago, exhausted, guarded, just trying to make it through each day, I barely recognize her. Not because I live in a different home or wear different clothes, but because I've shed the weight of believing I wasn't enough. The most valuable thing Michael ever gave me wasn't financial security or social status. It was the mirror he held up, showing me a strength I couldn't see in myself. Life has a strange way of surprising you, just when you've convinced yourself there are no more surprises left. My mother used to tell me that blessings come when you're too tired to look for them, and I never understood what she meant until now. I wasn't looking for love when it found me. I wasn't trying to change my life when everything transformed. There's a particular kind of freedom that comes with surviving rock bottom. Once you've lived through your worst fears, the empty bank account, the crushing responsibility, the bone-deep exhaustion, you realize how much stronger you are than you ever gave yourself credit for. And that strength doesn't disappear when circumstances improve. It becomes your foundation. My journey isn't special because a billionaire fell in love with me. It's special because I learned to see my own value before anyone else did. Because I discovered that my background, my struggles, my perspective, all the things I once thought made me less than, were actually what made me irreplaceable. If my story touched you, remember that life can change in an instant. Don't close yourself off to possibilities because of past pain. Your worth isn't defined by your circumstances, and sometimes the most beautiful chapters begin when you least expect them. The love you're looking for might arrive in a package you never imagined, but first, you have to believe you deserve it. This isn't just a story about finding love across social divides. It's about finding yourself in the process, about standing in your truth even when the world tries to make you small, about recognizing that your voice matters, your experiences have value, and your dreams aren't too big. Subscribe now and join me each week as I share more about navigating this incredible journey and the lessons I'm still learning every day. From practical advice on bridging different worlds to honest conversations about relationship challenges, I'm holding nothing back. Your story matters too, and I want to hear it. Together, we can redefine what's possible when we refuse to be limited by where we started. Because the truth is, your next chapter might be just one unexpected encounter away.